We're going to talk today about three things, and please do keep feeding in your questions, because Josh and I are here today to honestly just answer some questions about how we went about finding really top female STEM talent for what I'd say is quite a challenging area, and some of you may have found that. So the first thing we're going to go over is Vodafone's recruitment challenges. We're going to talk about how Bright Network has helped, and then finally think about solutions for the next generation as a whole. So that's us. I don't always wear orange when I do Bright Network events, but I have also managed to match my nails, so yeah, there we go, on brand. So a bit about Bright Network's mission. We are a mission-focused business, and what we aimed to do when we were set up approximately 6 years ago was make sure that every student who was on track or going to university had the best possible careers advice in order to make that best first step in their career. So we do predominantly focus on undergraduate market and now graduate market, but that's not to say that we aren't very much eyes wide open to think about other routes and apprenticeships. In fact, there's been loads and loads of great discussion on our tables today. So hopefully what will come out is that we are incredibly diverse. We open our doors to absolutely every student, and we want them to join us because it's completely free and it's a great network to be a part of. Have we got any Bright Network members in the room? No. Oh, one. Oh, there we go. And two. Brilliant. Okay. So why do we do what we do? We're incredibly focused on diversity as a whole. Whilst we never intended or set out to look at the strands of diversity, we've become incredibly diverse because minority groups or specific groups tend to want to have that network of support around them that their more privileged peers might already have. And what we aim to do is connect businesses with that hard to find talent. I'm sure from some of your table conversations you've been talking about how do I reach out to specific individuals? How do I not just increase number of applications, because I don't think anyone wants that, but find applications from really, really relevant people who are more likely to pass through the recruitment pipeline. And then the more exciting bit that we'll share with you is exactly how we do that. So using our unique data insights engine, which sounds really fun and is really fun, you'll be able to see how we supported Vodafone find those tricky candidates. So who are the network? We are now at 190,000 members. And when we talk about members, we're talking about students and graduates who are part of the Bright Network. So 190,000, which we are aiming to grow to 500,000 in the next couple of years. And whilst we want to have that really strong growth trajectory, we also want to maintain that focus across the board on students outside of London, on thinking about STEM, thinking about BAME, and actually what's not represented on this slide is our focus on social mobility, LGBT, and disability as a whole. So we've got some great stats to share with you, and I think one of the things, and I'm sure that Josh would agree, is we focus on areas of challenge that are specific to you. There's no two campaigns across the Bright Network that I would say are exactly the same, because it's entirely dependent on what solutions you need. So I'm going to hand over to Josh to tell you about his recruitment challenge.
Yes, so some lovely information there about Vodafone. I think like any big global employer, we don't struggle for kind of volumes of applications, wider talent, even in the UK where we have kind of a different perception, which I'll talk about in a moment. Obviously, our biggest focuses are always around diversity and quality, and not either of them kind of contradicting the other one. One of our biggest challenges, I think, when we go out to market, particularly in the UK, is if you go speak to the average person on the street and ask them, what do you think of Vodafone? Probably naturally, the first thing they say is either retail or mobile. That's like one of the biggest jokes and frustrations if you actually work for Vodafone, because you realise internally that's kind of like the commodity side of the business. And it is really about being a global technology organisation. We have obviously markets across the world where that may not be the perception, but it's something we definitely face in the UK as a challenge to say if 80% of our graduates and other programmes that we're hiring are in technology and we're going out to market and not actually seen as a technology leader, that becomes very difficult. Then you kind of add on the other challenges around diversity, which we're incredibly ambitious about, significantly across the organisation. It does make it very hard to kind of bring in the right talent. And like I said, we don't contradict or kind of move away from quality. So we do spend a lot of time, and it's not kind of a 2-3 month process. We end up dragging it out sometimes to try and get the right talent. So I think Vodafone and Bright Network have worked together kind of for a number of years, particularly since I joined, which is only 18 months ago in this role. We obviously had some challenges, and we were talking about, well, how do we really better target the right talent? Because again, it's not a problem about the volume and applications. It's just when we're really drilling down the figures, particularly as you go through the recruitment process, with the drop-offs and the dropout rates you get, we weren't getting enough of the right quality and diversity at the other end of the funnel. And just to kind of reference, particularly from a diversity perspective, year on year, we without doubt will hit over 50% female representation across all of our graduate programs and in technology. This is not a quota, as you would imagine, so it's not, again, compromising anything else, but it's an ambition that's driven very hard by the HRDs, to the point where if you haven't got it, you would just continue, even if you went 2 years later to hire back. It'd be a strange one. So me and Anu and wider Bright Networks, we talked about the kind of challenges that we have, and obviously there's a few others there as well. And I think you saw on 2 slides back, there was this kind of statement around unique data insights engine that helps kind of get a better understanding of our diversity and quality without driving applications up too much. And that was really important for us, because if I reflect back to last year, we would probably finished, I reckon, about 80% of our hiring. We still, which will happen always, have this kind of 20%, which is basically technology. And it usually is because we're getting towards the end of the cycle, and we know that this 20%, we're still trying to drive the right female tech talent into the organisation. And we have to start thinking very creatively about how do we do different stuff to try and engage these populations, even though we'd have probably done a lot of work beforehand. So some of the stuff we did alongside attending, obviously, particular events that were very focused on those populations. We talked to Bright Network about doing our own event. I think we ended up labelling it Wonder Women in Technology. And we used kind of the database and the wider support that Bright Networks were offering to really kind of reach out to very particular kind of candidates and profiles. And I think that's really beneficial for us, because we're very strict on the types of profiles, and obviously there was a comment about STEM backgrounds for our tech graduates. This year I think we're presenting anew with even more challenge, because we've gone from STEM down to core tech as well, which is even harder. But actually the results we're getting fantastic, and I think we had about 2 events focused on technology, one focused on kind of the business side. We probably had about 60 or 70 candidates across those, but particularly on the female in technology side, the Wonder Women event. It was kind of like an insight day / recruitment day, and we had some amazing talent, and we're talking about very late, I suppose, in the market at the time. One of them was in May, one of them was in June, to start in the September, a few months later.
And I believe that Josh gave us about 6 weeks to plan for this. So.
Yes, we did do that. We love speed in Vodafone, there's a lot of that. So it was a big challenge, and there was a really good kind of camaraderie around a bit of a project to kind of deliver this, and we engaged the business, who are always kind of there and involved. But we had some really, really big success. I think one of them, where we had about 30, we ended up offering, I think it was 15 of the candidates on the day, and we don't really take quality very lightly. We have really senior people involved in our assessment centres who have been trained to measure potential and behavioural competencies, but they were kind of blown away by some of the quality we had, which was really fantastic, because I think there's that misconception that if you're in May and June that the quality is going to be really low because it's very late, when actually we found it wasn't. And that's actually a great insight that Bright Network was giving us based on their database every year, was saying actually not all the graduates applying kind of November, December, January time. That doesn't mean you're fantastic if you just go and do something really early, maybe you've got exams on. And they were seeing kind of these peaks of applications, particularly with females, later on after exams in February, March and April. To get that type of insight was, one, really comforting, because we knew who's going to get what we needed, but actually it's really helpful for us to kind of drive a bit more planning and preparation.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And I think it goes to show that when you have the support of the business behind you, and when you can input these changes that are slightly more innovative in the way that you recruit. Josh was great at mobilising the business to have this one-day session where we could invite students in, and once they are in your firms and once they are in those 4 walls, it's so much easier to engage them, impress them and wow them with exactly why they should be working there. So kind of one of our recommendations would be to definitely get students inside your offices. Obviously, if you have nice offices, even better. So thank you, Josh. We're going to flick through to thinking about exactly how we thought about attracting that next generation of talent. So Josh has already touched on it slightly, but actually, who are this generation? Josh, I'm just going to ask you to pick up that booklet behind you and wave it around. We've had loads of really great speakers talking about their research. I'm just going to add another bit of research to the mix. Each year we go out to around, thank you Josh, around 3,000 respondents from our network to identify exactly what they want. This year, on the 4th of April, we have a completely free to attend research breakfast where we've asked about 5,000 of our network, what do they want? And beyond just that, we're also asking employers, what do you want from graduates, to make sure that there's that harmony and synergy between what we're telling our network. So millennials, classically interested in diversity, quite tech savvy, the age of Facebook and Twitter. being very much focused around physical health. And then we're seeing a shift when we look at our Gen Z. We're looking at them being tech innate, things like Snapchat, making sure that they are really focused on mental health. Now, there's a huge generational shift, and I think the next slide will bring that to life. Millennials were taught to be digital. Generation Z were just born to be. They want things immediately. They want things in front of them. They want to engage. They want intuitiveness. So how do Bright Network help with making sure that is the case? We love this slide. We know that things are happening quickly. So what is going to happen in another 10 years' time? It's about using the data and insights that we have on our network. So that's everything as an example from who they are, what they're interested in, what they're actually doing. We think of ourselves as a bit of a friendly big brother. And I mean that in the best way, because we can understand exactly what they want in order to give them that way of communication or solution for the future. So what does that actually mean? We do regular research that I've already mentioned. We have our data and insights that we use behind the scenes as our technology, and then we're building these high-touch relationships or high-touch points throughout their journey. We are the only network of our kind now that have that engagement with a student from the day that they might set foot on campus all the way through to the day when they tell us that they've secured a role. And it's really nice because you get that case study and you get that personal element, so you know exactly where they should be working. So to bring that to life a bit, historically, I'm sure that a lot of us in the room do this as well. We focused on, okay, what gender are you? What are you studying? What university have you gone to? Now, I, for one, know that I don't want to be targeted for a job based on the fact that I'm a woman or an ethnic minority or that I studied history. What does that really mean? So what instead we do is we pair this information on the left with the information on the right. So Bright Network would know that I am interested in maybe consulting, or I'm looking at consulting, but with my law degree, it might not necessarily tell you that I was interested in consulting in the first place. So it's using these insights from the events we run, from the digital platform, from the phone calls that we make to our members through our talent team to get that wholesome picture on who exactly a member is. So thinking about how we combine that data in order to really provide that tailored experience, here's a quick timeline or maybe a touch point line of exactly what that looks like. So we meet students on campus. We go to campus twice a year, and we have quite a growing team now of individuals who are present on campus, wearing orange, obviously. And then when we sign up students, they receive that tailored communication. So the onboarding process begins. We're able to see exactly who they are, what they're interested in, and then further from their tailored profile, which isn't as simple as just ticking that I'm interested in bits. It's showing you what are you actually doing on our website, what are you doing across our emails. We're able to target them further through more specific targeted digital emails, more specific focused phone calls. So our phone team in-house will, our talent team, shall I say, will phone our members, give them that careers advice that they might not already be receiving at university or through their own networks, and we will engage them to make sure that they are aware of opportunities that might have not been ever present to them in the past. It's all about putting and positioning opportunities that they may have not initially thought of. When they do apply for and secure a grad role, we do some nice things for them. So we give them some vouchers, we give them a bottle of champagne, we invite them into the office. In fact, one of our members was in our office yesterday having a drink with us. So it's a wholesome journey, and that's how we know exactly who they are. Sam, who is now a close personal friend of Josh's, I believe, we're all friends here, joined Vodafone, and he's probably one of our favourite members, apart from you two. So Sam studied law at Leicester University. He went on to do law thinking it's something, you know, a stable career perhaps. He was captain of the rugby team and president, and he was thinking, you know, I really enjoy these team sports, but I'll go ahead with my law degree. He subscribed to our updates and then attended our Bright Network Festival, which is as fun as it sounds and pretty tiring, in September, where he met various different employers and thought, maybe law isn't for me. He completed an internship with another tech organisation, and that's when he decided, okay, because I've met that tech organisation at the festival, perhaps this is the role for me. And Sam was actually one of the individuals that we invited to one of the Vodafone events recently, who managed to be successful and is now working at Vodafone. And it just goes to show, students will tell you, or students will declare that they are interested in specific areas. They will show you that they're studying a particular degree, but sometimes they don't know what they want to do, and you have to position a variety of things in front of them, which is definitely, you know, something I would have loved when I was a bit younger. This is a lovely quote from Sam. I'll just read it out for you quickly. So, without Bright Network, I would have been lost or still pursuing law. The difference was the personal phone call I received inviting him to an event. So, Sam still keeps regularly in touch with us. He now kind of does a lot of work with us. But it's about this one member across the 190,000 who all have that personal journey. We know from our events, Josh, I don't know if you want to say a bit more about the events that we had at Vodafone.
The Women in Tech ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Just to say on Sam, just to reiterate, he joined our business graduate program. He's kind of a bit of a personal friend. He lent me an electric skateboard. I think that's because I still try to pretend to be young, but I'm not. I think the important thing to know for him is he joined, May time?
Yeah.
Definitely from just what I see from him and what you feedback, and I'm talking about one individual here, but the level of quality of that type of graduate was really surprising to us because, again, for us, from a technical side, we do have some requirements, but a lot of it's around kind of behavioural competencies. And I think people like Sam, when you look at kind of resilience, adaptability, emotional intelligence, ability to come to an organisation like Vodafone and create such impact in the first, we're like 6 months in, was really, really surprising. And this was kind of across the board, which was fantastic.
Great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just going to kind of further that point. So we do have copies of our research, but one of the most interesting things that came out was 82% of our members say that they want to meet a firm before they make that initial application. When you drill down the data looking at women versus social mobility groups versus BAME or even BME that step further, this is even more prevalent because they want to see that you care about specific diversities. And going back to one of our other speakers' points on culture, some people might say it's fluffy, but I think it's so key because a culture of an organisation you can really see when you meet those individuals face to face. So 3 events that Vodafone took part in previously, our International Women's Day, which is next Friday, FYI, our Diversity and Inclusion Conference, and our Women in Technology. One of the reasons that we built these events, it's not just about what employers want, but it's also what our members tell us they want. International Women's Day was coined specifically by our students from a female leadership board who told us they don't want to kind of, worry or think about the gender pay gap. Instead, they want to celebrate the fact that they are incredibly bright, that they don't see their gender holding them back from careers, and they want to meet specific firms who have those gender initiatives. So by reverse engineering or building our events based on what our members want, we were able to see, okay, there is a shortage of women in tech industries. I'm sure a lot of you will face that, but how do we get them all together to meet those role models, to meet firms who can visibly show that they have that passion for hiring women? And then finally, I'll hand over to Josh to just maybe say a few more words on the Wonder Women in STEM.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a really successful event, particularly the first one where we had almost 50% of the hires coming from that particular event. I think we ended up with 23 in total, particularly from the technology side. But there was a lot of support from Bright Network. I think, as I said, we had half Insight Day, so they came in, spoke to internal female tech leaders that we had, panel sessions, and then obviously they went into kind of, they had the choice actually whether they could continue the rest of the day and go into some more kind of lighter touch assessments. But I think one of the things that really helped, which you saw in the kind of touch point piece, was that it wasn't just kind of email communications, there was kind of the phone calls, and I think sometimes, particularly with the female within tech pipeline that we were trying to create, that concierge service where they just get to kind of ask questions and understand about stuff was really helpful. And it was really good for them to kind of get more insight into what Vodafone does. Again, as we talked back to the original challenge, most people don't even apply because there will be this feeling that Vodafone is in a technology company, for example. So I think the more messages we can go and get out there through different avenues, which Bright Networks are helping us with, really supported the overall success of the day.
And like branding you as a tech employer rather than that mobile communications. So here are the results. We have broken this down for exactly what the objective was, how many hires were hired on the day from the Wonder Women in STEM event, and then finally we broke it down a little bit further just to show you cost per hire. We're really focused on outcomes, and I think when we came to have that conversation in May and June, it was more about what can we do at this late stage. So it's very much about tapping into that data insights, finding out who the members are who may have not initially even engaged with Vodafone across our events platform, etc., and then tapping them on the shoulder to say, have you thought about Vodafone? If they haven't, we'll have that consultative conversation with them. We're very much about making sure that the right people apply, because what we don't want to do is get people who apply, drop out of the process, or renege eventually. So there's a lot to be said, and we're really excited excited to see how those women perform in terms of retention, their development and ongoing activity.
One of the last points I would add is that I think when we're looking at kind of our strategy and our campus strategy, a lot of the time we talk about obviously having a wide net and then obviously one that's really tailored as well, and it becomes really difficult to find all the right candidates. Is that still we see as a company when you're doing loads of these events and you're asking people to come on campus, at the end of the day they are students, so an hour before, a day before, they can just decide, you know what, I fancy a pizza instead of coming to an event. And then you kind of get this massive drop-off and you put a lot of effort into them and you're engaging senior people to come. I think the one thing with these events is that clearly there was an element of trust between students and Bright Network, and it's probably because of the wider membership piece, where we felt more confident that if we're going to talk about having 30s and 40s coming to events, we knew we were going to get there or thereabouts. I've been part of events where we wanted or needed 60 and there's been about 10 turn up. And then you have that conversation with one of the SLT afterwards and she's like, I've just wasted my bloody time. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. But I think with those events where you know you're getting the numbers because the trust was there, that was really helpful. And I think regardless of what we do out there in the market and have brand ambassadors, there's always going to be an element of they don't really know the company. So I think having these kind of other platforms where there's clearly continuous engagement throughout the year with them really supported our ability to kind of just have more easy touch point.
Yeah. So I believe that is pretty much it. So we're just going to recap on 3 things for you to take away. Know your audience is really important. We've invested a huge amount of time, effort and money to think about how exactly we know our audience, so who they are, segmenting them carefully. Digital is absolutely the future, but it shouldn't replace the element of events. Using digital activity to bring forth the right people in front of you or in your offices is probably that best method of dual attack. And then finally, spend time on targeting. I'm sure that you'll all have received comms in the past where it's just not relevant to you or you unsubscribe. We do a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that that is very low, that our contact is incredibly relevant. And with that, you get that great result at the end. So I believe that's everything. Thank you so much.